Imagine you're walking down the street and a sudden blur of motion flashes toward your face. That instant flinching reaction happens before you even have time to think about what it is. Most of the time, we navigate life assuming we are entirely in the driver's seat. We think of our minds as a single, unified entity, a rational pilot making deliberate decisions about where to go and what to do. But your quick reflexes tell a different story. Below that deliberate pilot, we are constantly steered by a vast network of unconscious processes, deep systems evaluating threats and triggering actions entirely without our intention or awareness. To figure out why we operate with this split between a conscious pilot and a hidden autopilot, we have to look past abstract psychology. We have to map the physical architecture of the brain itself. The physical anatomy inside your skull functions as a living fossil record, tracing a billion-year story of how simple organic sensors eventually learned how to think. 3.5 billion years ago, early life forms navigated their environments without anything resembling a brain. A single-celled organism required only the absolute minimum amount of biological processing to detect local chemicals, move toward food, and stay alive. Roughly 600 million years ago, organisms developed dedicated nerve cells. In creatures like jellyfish, these formed decentralized nerve nets spread evenly throughout the body. Out in the ancient ocean, fractions of a second meant the difference between eating and being eaten. Natural selection favored any genetic variation that made interpreting sensory input faster and more accurate. When the first vertebrates emerged around 540 million years ago, those scattered nerve networks began to bundle together into a centralized hub. The remnants of that ancient hub still sit at the very base of your skull today. These are the hindbrain and the midbrain. These deep structures evolved specifically to handle basic, automatic survival functions like breathing and raw reflexes. They are incredibly fast, but they operate mechanically, offering almost zero flexibility. The next major hardware upgrade arrived roughly 200 million years ago with the development of the neocortex in early mammals. This period triggered rapid brain growth. Instead of a single generalized cluster of nerves, the mammalian brain divided into highly specialized regions. This diagram highlights the sensory cortex, dedicated strictly to processing raw data from the eyes, ears, and skin. Deeper inside, the hippocampus handles the formation and retrieval of long-term memories. Next to it, the amygdala regulates emotions and triggers fear responses. Humanity has long suspected that mental functions were isolated into specific compartments. Early phrenology charts were pure pseudoscience, but their underlying hunch about localized brain functions was eventually proven correct. By dedicating distinct neural hardware to distinct tasks, the mammalian brain built a foundation for advanced memory and storage, paving the way for higher-level problem-solving. Somewhere between 40 and 50,000 years ago, humanity underwent a massive cognitive shift. We started using complex symbols, building better tools, and coordinating large social groups. That burst of innovation, known as behavioral modernity, aligns perfectly with the physical expansion of the prefrontal cortex at the front of the human skull. This diagram shows the prefrontal cortex layering directly over those older inner brain structures. This outer shell is the hardware responsible for our executive functions, planning, abstract thinking, and deliberate decision-making. But complex problem-solving requires a lot of energy. Compared to the lightning-fast reactions of the ancient midbrain, the prefrontal cortex's conscious processing is relatively slow. What we experience as the self, or the conscious pilot, is actually just this newest, outermost layer of biological hardware. Evolution developed the human mind by stacking new models directly on top of older evolutionary ones. Your highly advanced prefrontal cortex physically sits on top of and relies upon those ancient automatic neural networks to feed it information. This timeline shows exactly how that data travels. A sensory input signal hits the amygdala and midbrain first. Because those ancient systems are wired for speed, they generate physical reactions and biases milliseconds before that data ever reaches your conscious awareness. That timing gap is exactly why you flinch at danger before you can register that you're afraid. Your inner hardware saw the threat and moved your muscles before your conscious mind finished processing the image. Every person is a collaboration of billions of years of survival strategies. A massive network of systems operates